Yeah, if you're okay with coming back and redoing things, that'd be great.
Yeah, of course. Let's see. Here we go. Can everyone see this?
Yep, I can. So if people haven't had time to read, if you want to just all take a look at it really quick, and then we can.
I have a question. I'm
Yeah,
wondering
Laura.
if we need to mention anyway in the letter that there's a, I don't know, a pathway of where you track how many accommodation you get on an annual basis and how often. I think it's essential to add tracking, because that way they can have a better estimate with creating a projected cost.
Okay. Yeah, so is that gonna be, that would probably be later, is one of the things we would like to work for, right?
Yes, but at the same time, I don't think there's no harm in establishing a tracking document from day one to whatever, because that way, then, I mean, you can break it down, like the day, what kind of accommodation, and what that accommodation meant. And then another thing is, after a person receives the accommodation, maybe it might be worthwhile sending out a survey, like to get them feedback of their experience of the process. I mean, it's kind of like the SWOT analysis: strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. Every time anyone had a business, they always have to set it up that way in order for them to determine what is the strength that you have when it comes to providing accommodation. What are your weaknesses? Sometimes the weaknesses can be perceived as a threat. And then you gotta look for opportunities to work on those weaknesses so that it becomes a strength.
Okay. I'm just wondering how we can make a nice little point of that in the, we want to add, I'm trying to just add kind of bullet points of what we should add and do serve or bring light to. So I'm just trying to think about where in this we can add or put it in.
Maybe right here, establish tracking document for accommodation.
Okay. Accommodation requests.
Yeah.
Would it be accommodation or accommodation requests? Because I think I do want to make it, one thing I always tell people I work with is when they won't make a accommodation, a reasonable accommodation request, is that just because you're requesting this doesn't mean you're going to get it, and doesn't mean you're going to get exactly what you want, right? Because it's an open to dialogue. So you want to make is it being accepted? Is it being denied? Why is it being denied? Are they replying to it in a timely manner? So I do think that that is something that we want to track. So not just the accommodations that are being provided, but also the requests that are being made and received. Amber, I see you raising your hand.
Yeah, I'm just curious. So I want to make sure I understand. If Laura, are you talking about accommodations for participation in the committee, or are you talking about employee accommodations for folks who work for City of Burlington, or a different kind of accommodation request?
But that's the question, isn't it?
Well, is this about HR tracking, or is this about like, I
That's
guess
what I mean. Isn't the committee formed, wasn't the committee formed for the general public, right? I don't know
I
if we
think-
need to
I
create
think
two
part of
separate.
to answer your question, Amber, I think it might be a little bit of both, but I think we want to work to make sure that we are advising the mayor's office that they are, you know, accepting reasonable, I think the one thing we've always said is like, who is the ADA coordinator for the city of Burlington? If somebody needs to make a reasonable accommodation request, and I got what you're pointing out for, in terms of employees, like who's accepting that and how's it being tracked? So I definitely see your point. That is one point we want to make sure for people working at there, but you are right. That's an interesting question. So can a visitor visiting a city make a reasonable accommodation request? That's an interesting question. Now I see what you're getting to.
yeah, like if they needed, like, we'll say, for example, I don't know if maybe Parks and Rec has some specific equipment that they might want to request to use, or like if there was an event, or let's say they wanted to participate in like a public meeting of some kind and they needed to use like, some assisted listening devices or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that there's like the HR and the privacy issues there that we might run into, but then there's also like visitor requests. That'd be really
So,
cool.
but you are right. I think we need to focus what this is regarding to. So I think it would need to be for city employees and for, city held events. So if like for townhouses or not for townhouses, Monday morning, town halls, and things that are being held like that, are requests being made for interpreters and things like that. So that's what we should track. So it shouldn't be just be reasonable accommodation requests. It's going to be within, employees making requests for while they work and for city held events. I think it would be.
Yeah, and I'm wondering too, if there's a place to track barrier removal, like if somebody does bring a barrier forward and say that there's an issue with, access in some way. Really the city should be resolving those within like a certain time frame. And so I'm wondering,
Yeah.
creating some kind of tracking mechanism for that too. So it's not just accommodations, but also like just barrier removal.
Yeah. Well, I know when we at BCIL hold an event, and we ask for interpreters, we say, please reply, make sure we get the announcement out pretty far in advance and say, please revise by, please request by. So we have times to set it up. So we want to make sure that's being put in and recording that, and just also make sure that when the city is holding events that they make sure to include that language. And if you need accommodation, like who are they contacting and are they being a time frame? So so I think it's going to be both tracking and it's almost being like establishing a point of contact for for employees to make reasonable accommodations and requests being held at city events, making sure there's a clear point of contact, but also tracking, how many requests are being made and what's being made. So I just threw out a very long babbling sentence here. So East Luton, let's see here.
But I just
So-
typed, I don't know if that makes sense to you, ensure availability of accommodation for upcoming public meetings and or public events.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I added more language to that last bullet. Is that okay?
Yep.
But honestly, regardless of whether it's employees or visitors, the city of Burlington is required by the ADA, Title II and Title III. So that don't matter. As well as the Vermont Housing Public Act.
Do we want to put, so we, right now we have established tracking document for accommodation requests within means, ensure availability of accommodations for upcoming public events, meetings and or public events. Do we, so that's one thing. I think that's good for public meetings. Do you think we need to put anything in there for employees? I mean, is that within our purview, like within, I think that'd be more HR. I see Sophie kind of shaking her head. What do you think?
Well, I would think it's more HR and I think someone mentioned privacy. It's, you know,
Yeah,
if you're doing your accommodation for an employee, it's not something you can share or should share unless
okay,
they're,
agreed,
know,
agreed.
yeah.
Yep, yep. Okay,
Can we add one more kind of word to this last bullet, Laura, that you edited?
Go for it.
Okay, so can it say establish tracking document for barrier removal and accommodation requests?
okay. So
Go ahead.
establish. Where would that be? Is that a new bullet or is that a?
But it is it okay if I pop in and edit
Yeah,
as well?
yep.
Okay. Oh, somebody's doing it. I see it.
Well, yeah, that was my question. Who's doing what? Are we having Ethan do it all or are we having different people go in and plug in stuff?
Yeah, I can do it. I was just taking a moment since Laura was already editing to quickly write down some stuff in the minutes, but
Okay, that's what I was wondering. I wasn't sure who was typing it. Then Laura's saying she's
Yeah.
typing it. I'm like, who's typing what? So let's feel free to have people do stuff, just as long as we're all, you know,
is this, yeah, is this kind of what you were thinking, Sophie?
Wasn't,
Oh,
it wasn't me, it was Amber.
So,
Or
yeah,
Amber? I'm sorry.
no, it's good. This is here. Yeah, so if it says like establish tracking document for barrier removal and accommodation requests, I would say to assure like something like appropriate and expedient resolution. Right, because I think we want to, like you're saying, make sure they're following the interactive process, but then also
Yeah.
really take care of stuff quickly.
Amber, are you, in terms of barrier removal, are you thinking physical or other? I don't know if that needs to be qualified. And as a employee that works more in the like physical, how we change physical space, I don't know, it feels like there needs to be some kind of like, not just about removal, but like resolution or
Like
You know what I
maybe barrier established tracking document for like barrier resolution or something like that. Is that?
yeah, I'm not sure what it entails, but I'm just thinking like, for
Okay.
example, Letty, you can't access the beach if you need the use of a wheelchair or any other mobility device, but that's not something we can do like right away. So I wouldn't want it to look like we're not trying to do something, but that there's some progress or a progress report or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so we could say, I mean, so this is almost, these are almost two separate things, right? So there's like a tracking document for somebody reporting a barrier. And also there's a, you know, request for accommodations. But then like, there's almost like a separate document that would be like tracking the resolution, you know, that was
Or-
put in.
Or
So-
progress or something like that, almost like a see, click, fix, where, someone reports something, then you see under it who's taking it on at the city level, what's happening, and when it closes out as resolved, but not reinventing that necessarily, but something like that I would see as more the physical
I have a
side of things
question.
anyways.
Yeah,
I'm wondering if you should indicate the fact that was in Maine. I was thinking more of suppose someone from out of state come. Like there was one incident where the Eastern Island, the cruise line, they emailed me, asked me what is within my rights because they literally got a request like 2 days before the weekend for interpreters. And I said that you can try to find interpreters, but you can't guarantee, you can't make promises because we have a very small interpreting pool. So people from out of state might think they may get the same level of availability when it comes to interpreters, but they don't realize when it comes to Vermont, it's a different story. You've got to give more further advance notice.
Mm.
Does that make sense? But I would imagine with any kind of accommodation, whether it's interpreters, car services, ramps, whatever.
well, I think it's also gonna vary, right? Depending, kind of like what Sophie said is, we're talking about a wheelchair for a beach or access to the beach area. That's gonna be a lot more complicated than maybe somebody requesting, some chairs be removed at a town meeting so they can, have space to get in, or, requesting an accessible lane, or maybe requesting that a meeting be moved down from well, then again, most of the meeting areas in the city of Burlington are accessible, but maybe requesting that a meeting be removed to a more accessible location. I think those are more fixable, but I do wonder, like in terms of requesting an interpreter and things, I think that would be something that would really, you probably need quite a bit of advance notice. Like I said, I know from our end at BCIO, we try to do it within 2 weeks. In some cases, maybe a week, but some things have opened up. So I think that would be, I don't know if we want to put those details in the memo now. It'd be something more that we would discuss when it comes into it. But we do want to address is that, kind of like what I'm hearing. Sophie gave a good example of see, click, fix. That's something that's around. Not everybody knows about it. Not everybody knows. So I think in some cases, it might not be so much reinventing the wheel, but letting people know that there is an avenue to do this and have that being known to people, so they're aware of it. So that's up on the City of Burlington website or something like that. If you need to make a request, go here and do this. Because maybe these services already exist, but the public doesn't know about them and they don't know where to go, which is very common. So, so I'm just wondering if that's something we might need to add somewhere in the memo. It's, maybe some of these things are already established and maybe it's put up there more, but making sure, people know it's there and it's accessible to them. And I think that's maybe, that is somewhere on the website, something kind of like that, but, we can, so we have review. Let me just go up, see if you say review and suggest updates to City of Burlington website to include, ensure that the City of Burlington website is in compliance with ADA requirements, provide easy to access up-to-date information on the Burlington Advisory Committee. Okay, that's us. So right there, I'm just writing the last white bullet. Provide a fact section and disability-related issues, including locations of accessible bathrooms, parking spots, and maybe we should add where to make accommodate, like what we, like we've already discussed, where to make accommodation requests or something like that.
So Nate, I just did a quick Google search to see, and the only thing that I see that comes up is how to make accommodation requests for court proceedings. So if there is a process, it's not like easy to find.
Yeah.
So for the interpreter, all you found was how to make interpreter requests for court.
Actually, how to make accommodation requests in general. The only information I found was how to make accommodation requests for court proceedings.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna ask Virginia for her thoughts on something she's the interpreter. But in terms of getting a request for an interpreter, what do you think is enough lead time?
I would, I can't be a participant in my role, and I have a
Okay.
lot of respect for Laura to answer that.
Sorry, Laura, what do you think then? Sorry,
2 weeks or more.
2 weeks or more. Okay. So that's probably what I said. I'm very a bare minimum of 2 weeks. Okay. All right. Anything else?
I have a question. I'm imagining that the city of Burlington always has the same event around the same time every year. Is that correct?
I think it's depending on the event. Sophie can answer that.
What events are you thinking about, Laura?
I'm thinking first night.
No more first night. First night's gone.
Are you serious?
Well,
Aw.
Yeah,
there's
first night's
something
been gone
else
for a while.
though. There's something else and it's by BCA now. I can't remember what it's called. You're talking about like December 31st, right?
Yes.
Yes. So it's
But
called.
Laura, I think I see your point. I do think, and Sophie, correct me if I'm wrong, because I sometimes get mixed up on what's being held by the city of Burlington and what's being held by, organizations, but there are annual events, that do get held and usually around the same time every year. And what we should probably do is make sure that those events, and maybe this is what you're getting to, Laura, is make sure that those events, it is known to make accommodations to people about those events in advance.
Bingo.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking of so one thing we did do when first night was around, we actually had the planners for first night come over and talk to the advisory committee on how they can make it. So we even found ways that they could list make sure that they can list where what concerts and things were in accessible venues and what weren't. And they kind of had a map, so we actually had there to speak to them. So I think we even did something with the Brew Fest, but I can't remember. I think it was something like making sure that if somebody with a ticket wanted to go there and they needed an aid, to make sure that aid, might get tagged with a designated thing so they wouldn't drink, but that they would be able to go in without having to pay an admission. So we did do things where we got a listing of annual events that the city or that related organizations were putting on, and that we made things to make them more accommodating. And so I do think that Laura, is that what you're getting at? Kind of make sure we have listed annual events and make sure there's proper.
Exactly. That way there'd no one overlooked anything like that. And if we already have an annual event, then it's almost like saying you're guaranteed you will always have this accommodation when there's nothing to worry about.
Well,
Yeah.
I'd say for annual events, from a parks perspective, that's led by, Emma was on this committee previously. That's like July 3rd. Beach Bites at Letty, which is behind the arena. And then you have the Halloween event. They support BCA events. And then there was Kids Weekend, which was this past weekend. I'd say that are the bigger events that are annual and ongoing. So I could invite it's a new event planner to one of our meetings to discuss that. So they have kind of a heads up on anything that has been experienced in the past that they could look to change for the future, if that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's actually something we kind of got away from on this committee. So I think this committee has many hats to do, but one thing that this committee did is we would invite people from certain, and it would be kind of, and this is what Keisha did, and I don't know if this would be something Ethan could do, but we would figure out what events are coming up and we would invite somebody. So just like you said, the community organized from Burlington Parks and Rec to come and speak to us about the events and provide suggestions, just like we did with First Night. So, and we would just look for testimonies from different people to understand. So I think part of it would be on our committee to kind of look up what's coming on the radar and then invite people from those to talk to us. And I do think it's a great idea for Sophie to invite that person and just kind of talk about what they're doing, ask them what they are doing to provide reasonable accommodations and listen to their suggestion. And Amber, you're at UVM, maybe UVM already does that, but maybe we should ask people from UVM community events to let us know, anything that's related to events going on in Burlington.
Yeah, I get feedback from community members who are trying to participate in events at UVM, and that's where I would love for there to be a more public forum for information to be shared. Because things will come through event services, and then I'll lots of times hear about them after somebody's already tried to access an event and then had difficulty doing so, but it's not as proactive as I'd like, as it really at all.
Yeah. So I do think that maybe that might be, I don't want to keep adding bullet points, but I do think that would be a good, I just want to see have discussion with, event planner, discussions with event organizers about how they could be more accessible, something like that. I'm just trying to read through the memo and see if there's anything else that we have up there. I think we added about adding members to the community, collaborating on educational events, review website.
I wonder if it's serving as a conduit between Burlingtonians and city leadership.
Yep.
You could add it
Yep,
in as a point.
Yep, that's what I'm looking at too.
There's the designing
So,
and
Laura-
programming of events that's already covered in there. And then I think for us, we could specify what we want to do, but probably for the mayor, it doesn't need to be as, down to the how are we going to do it?
Yeah. So I don't know if I was looking at the Apple, yeah, right there. I think we just need to figure out where we are. I mean, it doesn't need to be changed. I do think, I don't think there's anything in there on events. These are also projects. So yeah, these are, I think when I wrote that, I was thinking more about, making buildings or designing parks and things like that. So I do think it could be something to, yeah. do we want to do, I think we should also make projects and events, because I think also we just want to do, not just project, yeah, but like concerts and stuff.
I was also wondering if maybe the second,
Wait, sorry. How is this? How is the sentence?
The thing is, do we have that? So if you look at the second bullet, it says collaborate and sponsor 2 major educational events. Oh, no, okay. No, actually, okay, that's good. All right. The only other thing I'm wondering from people, can we go back up to the very top of the memo? And I think we need to get Vanessa's feedback. That first paragraph is we need to determine whether the $15,000 we received carries over. Is it something that carries over into this fiscal year? And should we just ask for a, like a budget of $15,000 a year? Like, I don't really know. Oh yeah, a continual budget of $15,000. So I guess it's pretty clear. I just wasn't sure if by reading that, if they're thinking, oh, we need 15, if money does carrying over, are we asking for $15,000 on top of that? Or are we asking that the starting budget of the fiscal year be at $15,000 every year? And
I don't know if it would be continual or just annual budget, because continual seems to imply that every time you spend it, they should top it off. That's how I would read it.
Yeah, okay, I agree. Okay. So I think the other question is, and I can't remember who said, I think it was Vanessa. This memo should go simultaneously to the mayor's office and CEDO. I think that was what we originally, I'm just trying to think about how we, and I did not change the 2 sections, so I don't know if any of that is out of date. So is Catherine Scott still there? Does anybody know? That might be something I could ask for Vanessa's feedback on.
Sorry, Catherine, who? Are you
At the-
asking?
Yeah, SCAD, at the very top, second line from the very top under the date.
Yes,
to-
that's a CEO. Yes, she's still there.
Okay, all right. And that's CEDO? Okay. all right,
No, she's CT. See, she's the Chief Administrative Officer.
Okay, okay. So I guess the question is, do we need to improve? Do we want to include Brian Pine or something in that, in that memo when we send it out? I believe that is what what Vanessa recommended at the last meeting, and because CEDO is the one who are proposing the funds be moved into and kind of oversee it, I would think that that is what we would do.
I think that makes complete sense. Yeah.
So we might want to say to Brent Marijuana and Chief Administrative Officer. And I don't know if we should add and Brian Pine. You know, Executive Director CEDU, I think. Okay.
How's that? Does that work?
Yeah, I think so. So we can look it over. I think we have a pretty good layout here. I did want to kind of talk about what we had accomplished. So I did put some things in there. You did a lot of it was just really just getting people on the committee, holding meetings, you know, having interpreters provided. But if anybody knows of anything else this committee did, again, we, you know, having something happen in the middle of a pandemic, you know, wasn't really able to get much done. But, and also please look through at the people who I suggested we add to the committee and maybe think that, is there anybody else we should think of including, inviting? It's like I don't want to make these committees too big because you have a too many cooks in the kitchen type scenario. But on the other hand, I want to make sure we're represented by a, you know, a good population.
Yeah.
I have a
So
question.
Mike, just a quick question. So obviously we're down a couple of people today that I think would be helpful with the editing of this memo. What did you have a date in mind for sending this memo out, like a hard deadline?
Yeah, that's a good point. I would certainly say get everything out by the end of the month. I would think that we should probably get, you know, I don't know how these things go with, and Sophie, I don't know if you can speak to what it looks like in terms of the budgetary process and stuff, or whether that's too late, but it's the 16th now. Should we look to the 27th to get stuff out, or you know, or well, 30th is Memorial Day. Should we try to do it before or after Memorial Day? I'm just thinking maybe get it out one of those.
I'm not sure what budget this came out of originally, but it is budget season right now. Budget presentations by different departments are happening starting tonight, basically. So I think the sooner you can send it off, the better.
Well, let's do it by let's set it by the end of this week then. I mean, I don't think it's going to need much editing, much other editing. So I would just say, let's try to get it out by the end of this week. And you know, we can let, so looking at the people who aren't here, there's Mary Catherine, there's Vanessa, there's Mike. Mike's a community member. I don't really, and he has a lot on his plate. I don't know if he's really going to have feedback. We definitely want to get Vanessa's feedback. Laura, so yeah, let's just set a hard, let's do it before the end of this week. Let's just make it, we have a good body here, so we could just say, you know, let's get this up before the end of the week, and let's do that. So deadline for the 20th. What do people think about that? Okay, perfect. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. I think we made a good progress on this and got that done, and hopefully we will get everything in and we will be fully funded and flush with cash and get people. I guess once we really get some guidelines, I think now, you know, even before we get the funding, maybe kind of use the next meeting to set like a game plan of what we want to start doing. Like maybe start reaching out to some of these places that we're hoping to get new members on, or I know that we had discussed preventing a review of the language access plan. I believe Laura, and I know both Laura and Ethan were working on that. I don't know if there's anything much this committee needs to do for that, but making sure that the disabled community is included on that.
Oh, yes. I did want to ask, I already reached out to Laura about this. Basically, I'm working on some NeoGov trainings and orientations, as well as some stuff for the city website on language access. And I'm looking for some statistics specifically for Burlington on accessibility, which I haven't been able to find. And I asked Laura, and I don't think she was able to find any either. I'm mostly able to find statistics for the state of Vermont. But if anyone knows, like, I don't know, how many people in the city of Burlington have like communications related disabilities, something like that. Yeah, I'm just looking for, because I'm trying to educate, some people on these statistics.
Yeah, that's actually a good question, Ethan. I have a result from a survey that we did a while back, just regarding that we sent out to the city of Burlington as a whole about, do you identify as a person with a disability? And I don't think we have anything specifically on communication. So what I could do is I can send you that survey, and maybe there should be some things to pick from that. I'm trying to think about where you might be a good resource to get statistics specifically for Burlington.
Well, that survey would be really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, just to give some context, it's kind of like I'm explaining like the whole purpose behind the language access plan, and for other language related issues, I have like statistics for that. So I thought it would be great if I could also provide some statistics so that, let people know, in the city, we need to have these resources for, for these people, stuff like that.
Yeah, Laura, to your knowledge, do you know, and I'm guessing maybe they can't be shared due to, HIPAA laws or whatever is covered to it, but do you think we would ever be able to get any figures that say, okay, this is how many ASLs requests have been to an organization for interpreters in Burlington? I'm just trying to think. I'm just trying to, spitball some things. If maybe we could reach out to some of the places and say, can you give us a number of how many ASL interpreters? Who would that even be? I don't even know if that's,
Here's my biggest challenge. Part of my job is people want me to do data collection, but how do I do that without violating HIPAA?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
It's a challenge. So that's why the only information I have is through the United States Census.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
I know that the Department of Health is in process of trying to figure out how to collect data on deaf, hard of hearing, and disabled people, but I don't know where they are with that. I have a meeting with them on Thursday morning. If I can find out from them on Thursday, I will let you know.
Okay, yeah, that would be great, because that's the only way I can think about it, is saying, somebody says, in the city of Burlington, we have received, 50 requests for ASL interpreters in, the past year, something like that. I thought might be a good thing to show, but again, I don't.
I mean, if you really wanted to know, you can always ask Vancouver to see if they're willing to give you a basic data.
Yeah.
Because they're the one that covered the whole state, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone used them directly. But it might give you a general idea.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I'm thinking is, I'm wondering if the city of Burlington is able to do I don't know, like if you have any funding and hire someone to do a survey for you. The only problem is when it comes to the US Census, or even the Department of Health, their survey is too vague because they typically ask the same question: do you have any difficulty hearing? Anyone could say yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, well, actually, I might as well, since I'm sharing my screen anyway, I can give you guys a quick preview of the language access website that I've been working on.
yep, absolutely.
Hopefully it'll just pop up when oh, excuse me. I just have to quickly log in.
I just shared in the link. Apparently, they've helped a lot of people collect data, statistics. Maybe it'd be worth having a conversation with them to see if what they could do to help us, the city of Burlington, with collecting data.
Oh, okay, yeah, great, yeah. Thanks for the link. Yeah, so if everyone can see this, basically, this page is not published yet because it's kind of my rough outline draft of what I want to be on here. But I was able. We do have information on like census data. Like here, I put like, did you know over 10% of the population of the city of Burlington speak a language other than English at home? I would also really like to get some accessibility information here.
Yeah,
Something like what you said would be great. Like we get requests from people who are blind, hard of hearing, and other communication related disabilities, something like that.
well, maybe even if we can get a number of people, an estimate of the number who are part of the deaf, hard of hearing community in the Burlington area. There are also kind of like, I'm assuming the percentage is pretty low, but it would be helpful to, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, like
So, again, the only data I have is based on the Vermont legislative report through the Deaf, Hard of Hearing, Deaf, Blind Advisory Council. We have about 70,000 Vermonters who have hearing loss. And then for children, we have about less than 500 in the school system statewide.
oh,
But
okay.
as far as getting the nitty gritty detail, I'm just gonna say that I would encourage you to reach out to Vermont Association of the Blind and Visually Impaired, Vancouver Integrated Interpreting Services. You could try UVM Care Team as well as UVMC. They're all of the links are on my website. I can email you a list of potential contacts, and then you can reach out to them and see if there's any information that they can share with you.
That would be amazing. Yeah, I'd really appreciate that.
The other thing, Ethan, I may be able to do is I can check, we have, it would just be people working with VCIL, but we track, whenever we do our 504 report, we track, the number of people we are working with disabilities in each area. What I might be able to do is ask our database guy to say, would you be able to give us like a rough figure of how many, deaf, hard hearing peers we work with in the Burlington area? You know what I mean? It would be a snapshot, because obviously I don't think everybody who is part of that community work with VCIL, but it would at least be able to say, VCIL works with, in the area. So I may be able to ask our database person, can you just give me a snapshot of, because, you know, whenever we list people down the database, we list who we're working with, we get an approximation of what their disabilities are, because that's stuff we need to do for our federal report. So maybe I can also just say, hey, can you give us a snapshot of how many people who are part of the, you know, deaf hard hearing community that we work with? That might be another thing I'll be able to do.
Yeah, that would also be amazing. I think just having any sort of info or
Okay.
statistic here, just to raise
Okay.
awareness, I would go a long way.
Okay. Okay. All right, well, we are nearing the end of our time. We have about 4 minutes left, but I think we did get some good things. So I think the next step would be to send out one last thing of revisions to those who have not attended. And just send out and say, we just want to get this done and out by the 20th. So I can certainly do that, or Ethan, I guess you could do that if you're okay with just sending out the email just saying we've made the some final revisions. What we're looking for is to get, you know, full feedback so we can get out by the 20th. If you're okay with doing that, and then once we get it done, we can submit it. And I'm assuming it would be going to, you know, we send it to the mayor, and yeah, that's the other question. I can send it from my own office, my email, or I don't know if it should come from another city department. I don't know if we should have Vanessa send it or what. I'm able to do anything. So I do know that, you know, it was sent through a city. It was sent by HR last time, but I think we're trying to move that away. But we can certainly do that again. And I'll talk to Vanessa about that actually. Okay, so just looking ahead, I just want to confirm the next meeting date with everyone. Again, that's one other thing. I don't think we're ever going to get a perfect date, but obviously, you know, if people are finding, I say this as someone who asked around for this date and time, and this is what the majority of people said, but if we think there's a circumstance where this date and time doesn't work, we can always look another one. But right now I'm looking at June 20th. How's it? That's Juneteenth. Do municipalities have that day off? Does anybody know? Is Juneteenth a holiday?
We don't, as far as I know. Ethan, correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah, I do not believe it's a federal holiday.
No, it's not yet. I know there was a movement towards it. Okay, just wanted to make sure. I don't think it's a holiday for VCIL as well. I did just want to check. So right now the next meeting is June 20th at 3 o'clock. So I will once again bombard people with reminders. I've now set it automatically, so I apologize if we get 4 reminders all at once, but I'm now doing that. And I will see everybody then. If anybody has any other closeout questions or comments? Nope. Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone.
thanks, everyone. Take care.